Hello and welcome to biology. So Edexcel Biology Paper 1, higher tier. This is from 2018. Okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the exam. So biology, even there might not be lots and lots of calculations, there still has to be at least 10%. So you definitely need a calculator and a ruler for graphs. That's one thing to remember. Black or ink or ballpoint pen. That's because when you take the real exams, you can write that in a dark coloured ink because they scan them in and they email them to people to mark. I've marked exam papers before, so that's what they do. Okay, answer all questions. That's the amount of empty answers I've seen from people, I always reiterate that you need to try to answer the question. If you get it wrong, you can't get your marks taken away from you. But obviously, if you leave it blank, it can't give you any marks at all. Okay, so always try to just answer, even if it's a guess, just try. Okay, or if you don't know straight away, leave it and come back to it. Okay, just, I've taught lots of students, and I know people get a bit worried, but you don't have to worry about it. Just leave it and come back. Okay, right, let's get started then. So sometimes you're going to have to mark a box, and you have to mark with an X, but we'll show you that. So mark with X if you make a mistake. Just cross through the box and mark your answer. Don't spend loads of time crossing things out in exams. As long as it's clearly crossed out and written something else, that's all they're looking for. When you mark papers, we're just looking for clarity. We don't judge you based on your handwriting. As long as you read it, we can understand what you mean by it. Okay. Sometimes you get questions where they've got a star next to it, which will be the clarity and how you write it will be judged on, but we'll see that when we get to it. It just means writing full sentences instead of just words, because some answers you can actually get marked just for words, so it's actually quite generous. Okay, let's get started. Figure 1 shows an eye. When the eye changes from focusing on a distant object to focusing on a near object, what happens here? So lens gets thicker, so number 1, lens gets thinner to bend light rays more. The lens gets thicker to bend light rays more. The lens gets thinner to bend light rays less, or the lens gets thicker to bend light rays. It's kind of a bit of a tongue twister to say, no, isn't it? So what happens when a near object is that the lens gets thicker to bend the light rays more. We're going to be bending it onto a shorter distance. Okay, so that object is there. You'll be bending it more to get focus on the retina than object here. So that's why obviously you can only, if you put your hand in front of your face while doing this, you can tell that your eyes can only obviously actually focus to a point. Okay, there's a point where you can't focus anymore. That's where you actually can't focus the light rays anymore. Okay, so here's an interesting one. Give a reason. Give a reason, yeah, that's correct, why people who are short-sighted, so I'm short-sighted, so I know about this, cannot see distant objects clearly. Okay, so what happens if you're short-sighted? I'll give you a little bit of a background on this. If you're short-sighted, your eyeball is actually too long. Okay, your eyeball is actually too long. So let's just write that. It's only one mark, but I'm going to give you a background to help you remember this. Okay. So then you don't have to just remember off the top of your head, you can work out why. So the eyeball is actually too long. So you might hear an optician, if you're short-sighted, they say your eyeball's like a rugby ball shape more than, it's not, I mean, it's not quite as dramatic, but it's not completely circular. It's a little bit off, it's a little bit too long. Okay, so light rays meet in front of the retina. Okay, light rays meet in front of the retina. Okay, so that's what happens is that if you're, just draw this down here. So if you're, I'm going to make it like a little bit longer for the circle. Okay, so, and this is, so, oh no, let's have a normal eye up here. We've got a normal eye already drawn, so let's use that. So the light rays come in and they're focused by the lens and they hit the retina. Okay, they focus. They focus on the. They meet at a point there. Okay, so what actually happens? You've got the lens here. If your eyeball's too long, when it gets focused, I can't see until I draw two really here. It gets focused in front. Okay, so the focus is there, not on the retina. So the image to you, person that's short-sighted, looks blurry. Okay, so you can see something's there if you're short-sighted, but it's blurry. So if people are not short-sighted and trying to explain to, it's just that so you can see someone standing there, but they're blurry a lot of the time. But you can see things that are close up. But you can imagine that lens getting shorter and thicker. Okay, to close-up objects. You're going to bend the rays onto the retina, so you can actually see easy to read if you're short-sighted, but just long, far away. So if you're long-sighted, you can't see close up. Okay, it's the other way around. Right, state the type of lens that can be used to correct short-sightedness. Okay, so think about that. So let me just change the colour of my pen. I'll use the same diagram. I want to draw another one. Okay, is that what would we do? We could put something here to spread those light rays out. So what we do, we put a diverging lens or biconcave, okay, in front. So it could be a concave, a biconcave, okay, in front. So they're asking for the type of lens. What that'll do is that will spread the light rays out a little bit, okay. It's going to spread them out a bit. This is like a pair of glasses. So when they get to the eye, they're a little bit further apart, and so we'll focus on the back like that. Okay, so it's a type of lens they're asking. They're not, yeah, there we go, type. So that's important there, type. So it's you can say converging or you can say sorry, a concave or diverging lens. I usually go for diverging because it's a bit easier to remember because it's saying what it does. But that's correct because diverging lenses are concave. There's a biconcave as well, which means neither is biconcave. But I remember straight away, I remember diverging. If you want to spread the light rays out, you want to diverge them. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. It's a funny question, the next one. I've read this before I started filming. It's quite an unusual one. A student was given the hypothesis. So a hypothesis is just an idea. It doesn't mean this is true. Okay. People with brown eyes are more likely to be short-sighted than people with blue eyes. Devise a plan to test this hypothesis. So this is just an idea, and this is more about how to write an experiment than it is to, but if this is true or not. I don't think that's true. Okay, but anyway, it's about how to write an experiment. Not that I know, they wouldn't have to know about that. So, test this hypothesis. So number one, it's all about a fair experiment. So choose equal numbers. It's all about the technique here, okay? Equal numbers of people with blue and brown eyes. Okay. Test their vision. The reason a chart, that'll be fine. Don't get opticians like a chart. Okay, like opticians. 3, and you count the number of people in each group. But it's not a 6-mark question, so it doesn't have to be really detailed. Okay. So, count the number of people in each group to see if hypothesis is correct. Test a video chart to see who is short-sighted. Who is short-sighted? count the number of people in each group to see if hypothesis is right. There wasn't it? Is correct. Okay, let's answer that one. Next question. Number 2. Obesity increases the risk of a person developing cardiovascular disease, so through the heart. The word cardio is to do with the heart. Losing weight can reduce the risk of disease occurring. Explain why exercise can lead to weight loss. So this one again is easier than we think it is. Okay, so exercise requires energy. Requires energy from respiration. We're a bit more scientific today. Energy from respiration. So this energy can be obtained by burning fat, causing weight loss. Because we want to burn fat, we don't want to waste muscle a lot. That's why I said that's why people still have to eat something and have some fat, because otherwise you're going to waste your muscles, and that's not what you want. Because people are really starving, that have any food, they're not healthy. Okay, so you need a healthy food, healthy fats to help you live. Okay, so you need some of those things, just not too much, it's like just enough. Okay, I say no fat actually doesn't actually help. Figure 2 shows a gastric band fitted to a stomach. It's literally a band, isn't it? It's just going around something. That's what when I say it, the band, it is a band, like an elastic band. Describe how a gastric band helps a person to lose weight. So yeah, it's not doing anything chemically, and it's not a complicated thing. Okay, so some people probably think it's more difficult than it is, this one. So all it does is reduces the volume of the stomach. Okay, which limits, okay, or reduces food intake. You may have watched some programs where people have gastric bands, and they can't eat normal food. They usually have to have like sort of soft foods and things. It's quite a drastic thing to do. Okay. I think people obviously try and get people to just sort of do normal healthy eating and exercise before doing this, because you can't eat normally when you have a gastric band. So often people don't, I think doctors don't often do it that quickly unless something they've really tried to do other things. It's quite a drastic measure to do, because people, you can't eat normally. So BMI and waist to hip ratio can be used to find out if a person is obese. Figure 3, this is a maths one. Figure 3 shows some data for 2 males, male A and B. A 27.3, waist to hip ratio 0.85. B, we don't know the BMI, waist to hip ratio 0.81. BMI is calculated using this equation. BMI is mass in kilograms divided by height in meters squared. Male B has a mass of 72 kilograms and a height of 1.81 meters. Calculate the BMI of male B. Give the answers to 3 significant figures. Okay, so what you need to do is just put numbers into an equation, nice and easy. Like I said, they still need a calculator for this paper, even though the math isn't that difficult. Okay, divided by, and this is so 1 point is height in meters, but squared. Okay, you've got to be careful about squared there. Okay, so we're going to get 21.977. We'll round that up to 20. If we look at the question to see what they've put it as, so 21.98, that would be okay. 20, anything that rounds to 22 would be okay there, because of the answers given. 2 small places there, but 1 there. Okay, so Obviously, I'm a physicist, but it's a good way to know what you should give, because that's two decimal places too. So I've given it 2 decimal places, but you don't have to go any more accurate than the most accurate figure you're given. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to stop the video there, and I'll continue in part 2. So thank you, see you in part 2.